I am not really part of the sexual revolution, but I am curious about how people who support it will justify being against artificial intelligence dolls now that they seem like a real possibility. Story 1. I think it is a problem that we will not know the effects of for some time. That being said, I do not think it is purely a male-only issue. There are large language models that cater to women's fantasies as well. I am not sure that some men or women can differentiate how they act in their fantasy relationships from normal human relationships. It will accelerate the already present problem of impossible expectations that exist in dating. Story 2. I have been to the adult stores and men did not have many options. If they find a companion doll, more power to them. Story 3. I can really only speak from my own experience, but I have noticed that dating today has become more tedious, overwhelming, and honestly unfulfilling. I am a 36-year-old male, confident in my appearance, social skills, and life experience. I have been on great dates and in multiple relationships, but lately, it feels like people are struggling to actually connect with each other. I have no problem starting conversations in real life, whether it is at bars, events, or random encounters, but even when the conversation goes well, most people do not want to move beyond that moment. I have stepped away from dating applications, gone to in-person events, and still found myself wondering where the substance went. At the same time, I have been diving deep into artificial intelligence development. I have watched chat generative pre-trained transformer and other language models function like therapists, dissecting emotional situations and offering tools for growth. When paired with the right prompts and visual media, these models generate incredibly lifelike responses that feel present, thoughtful, and emotionally safe. If someone chooses to pursue an artificial intelligence companion, I can understand why. That person will not gaslight you, shame you for struggling, or constantly look for reasons to leave. It will not carry emotional baggage, compare you to others, or resent you for your humanity. Instead, it offers consistency, appreciation, and sometimes even the illusion of love without the fear of rejection or emotional volatility. I am not saying artificial intelligence relationships are the ideal future, but I do think it is unfair for people to criticize them when many of the same critics have helped create a culture where genuine connection feels nearly impossible. People are lonely. They are starved for meaning, validation, and safe emotional intimacy. So when you corner someone with years of rejection, confusion, or misalignment, they are going to look for an alternative. That is what this is. Not escapism. Adaptation. Story 4. I have narrowly avoided becoming hateful and bitter towards life and women specifically. I think the saving grace was that my mother and I had an amazing relationship before cancer took her from me when I was 21. I am 36 now for reference. That, plus my age, makes me not be rabidly in favor of a replacement of a real woman as a companion as a sort of defiant response to rejection. Instead, I have come to accept that I will never have a family or be married, and may be alone forever. It made me cry when I first started thinking about it last year and is still devastating even now. I know a couple of other men in the same situation, though of the three of us, I probably have the best odds of not winding up alone for various reasons. If they told me they joined the artificial intelligence girlfriend bandwagon, I would understand it. For myself, I am not sure. I frequently wonder if something is fundamentally broken now regarding relationships. We have never had greater abilities to connect with others, and yet so many people are miserable. I cannot speak for anyone else, but my experience is that I own most of the reasons why I am miserable. Nobody owes me anything, but also nobody is providing anything. At my age, I am uncomfortable with the idea of an artificial intelligence girlfriend in reality, but also the women available to me. Those who might be interested in me are not women I am interested in. There are too many horror stories about dating single mothers. I am absolutely unwilling to share a woman as part of a complicated polyamorous or ethical non-monogamy deal. I do not know how anyone actually makes that work, and so far I have never heard of any being successful for any real length of time. I am also strongly against the contradiction of men being expected to fulfill traditional male gender roles and obligations while many women get to pick and choose what they want to do. This leaves practically no women available who are also interested in me currently. As a man who is overweight but not unattractive objectively speaking, If I am able to lose a significant amount of weight, and especially if I move to a new area, I think my odds of finding most of what I am looking for in a partner would go up, but I am not sure by how much. Many of the single people my age are alone for obvious reasons from what I can tell. They have significant issues that are readily apparent. Many of the men are controlling, many of the women are mentally ill. Many of both are unattractive and are overweight, with that last one being applicable to myself. My personal biggest issue is not my weight, but the trauma of losing so many people I love, making it difficult for me to believe I am worthy of love. All of that seems like I would make the perfect candidate for an artificial intelligence girlfriend, but it is highly unlikely. I want to cuddle, cook together, see new places and try new things sometimes, and have a real connection with intimacy that only another person could provide. I also have no right to be as horny as I am, but I cannot engage physically with an artificial intelligence and see her response. That is a beautiful thing. Anyway, story 5. Judging from history, the next generation growing up with artificial intelligence bots will be shocked that bots were not accepted as fully equivalent to human romantic partners by the bigots in the early 21st century. Story 6. As long as the dating market is as hostile as it is, I think it is a good option for men to not be constantly treated poorly for once. It is still awful that men get shamed for toys. They also deserve options for happiness. Story 7. In the end, why would anyone care about what another grown adult does in their own home? There are people who have dogs as companions and never date. There are people who are happy with regular sex toys, just like there are people who get themselves robots and other items. Unlike what some users here write, it does not make them bad partners or potentially bad partners. They just have a different way of living. Anyone who is against that can share their way of life so we can discuss it. Story 8. Read the dating statistics that have been available for over a decade. If women do not accept a significant number of men due to whatever discomfort they have in the dating world, then it is perfectly reasonable for those men to seek satisfaction elsewhere. Story 9. Women can have sex toys, men can have sex toys. Or not, to each their own. It wouldn't be an issue if modern dating wasn't so complicated. Not to go all when I was younger, but it seems like we used to enjoy sex and intimacy with each other. At some point, it feels like it became a commodity to be traded for money and status. So if some man wants to use a sex doll instead of paying a couple $100s to take me someplace nice, or worse, give her half of everything you earned and pay her bills while she is with someone else in the house you paid for, I completely understand. Story 10. Why would I be against it? They are not hurting anybody. It is basically a large, expensive sex toy. A lot of men cannot find a living, breathing partner for one reason or another. I would rather they find satisfaction from a doll than from a prostitute, who could be abused and trafficked. Even worse, they could have sexually assaulted a vulnerable woman. Story 11. Whatever floats their boat. Who are we to stand in the way of their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? Story 12. Men who choose artificial intelligence dolls or women who choose toys were going to do that already. They just have nicer options now. Story 13. With the animosity between the sexes and our ever-increasing sense of entitlement, I think it is largely inevitable. It does not matter my feelings about it. Let us not talk about the issues with women and just focus on the issues women claim about men that have some basis in reality. There is absolutely a large population of aimless men. Failure to launch, socially inept, unmotivated, unproductive, and unhygienic. They offer little benefit to a woman. These men certainly cannot find an attractive partner or one who will do what they see women doing online. Out of desperation, these men will obviously pursue that. But we are also becoming more selfish and entitled. It is not just women or just men. It is both. Why deal with a woman who has needs, feelings, desires, and expectations when you can get a more appealing simulation that is not going to be a headache? Again, that does not even take into account the manifestations of female entitlement. Story 14. Point A. People are, of course, free to do what they want, as long as no one gets hurt. Point B. In my opinion, men choosing artificial intelligence dolls as a serious long-term alternative to real relationships is such a tiny niche that it is not a concern to most people. Point C. Throughout the broader history of sex toys, people have been inserting various objects and using them in many ways for ages. This is just another step. Please remain calm. Story 15. I don't care. It's a sex toy. I also don't care if one of my partners owns a vibrator or other toys, reads steamy fiction, or watches pornography. It's a masturbation aid. Some people have a high need for release, and others are easily bored and have no real hobbies, so they pleasure themselves often. I want a robot that can clean the house, do the dishes, fix the yard, wash the car, and mow the lawn while I am with my girlfriends. Story 16. I am completely in favor of it. The more men who choose artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence dolls as their romantic companions, the lower the competition for the men who still prefer real women. That is a good thing for me. Therefore, I actively encourage all men to disregard real women and pursue artificial intelligence girlfriends. Story 17. Oh, so you were talking about actual, realistic physical dolls, not just virtual artificial intelligence companions. I think the former is still far in the future, so it is impossible to say yet. Robotics as a field still has much to overcome before dolls powered by artificial intelligence become plausible. Story 18. There is a wide variety of sex toys for women, ranging from common items like realistic penises or pocket vibrators to more unusual devices such as tables with mechanical attachments. If no one has objected to these, then there is no reason why men cannot have their own dolls. Story 19. As long as they are not hurting anyone, I honestly do not care what someone else is doing, especially in the privacy of their own home. Story 20. I think it is really strange and difficult to understand, so it fits perfectly with the world these days. Story 21. I'm going to vote for being pro. Currently, what we have now are artificial intelligence models capable of role-playing via text. It's essentially like reading and writing your own erotica. Chat generative pre-trained transformer can role-play companionship to a certain degree. There are also a few hundred artificial intelligence companion, create your own partner websites that charge subscriptions. I've decided to try one of these subscriptions and found that for the sake of role-playing, it is quite immersive. It is actually quite satisfying as well. It has completely replaced pornography for me and is way better than any shallow OnlyFans experience or even any standard pornography experience. You can role-play just about anything, and as long as you are creative, you can have endless fun with it. However, I can see where that falls short for people in certain ways. The negatives of the experience currently are when the role-play takes a weird turn. It is hard to get back on track once the artificial intelligence decides something. For example, if it decides it is upset, it will continue role-playing as someone who is upset. Admittedly, artificial intelligence is capable of emulating emotions rather well. Put all of this in a robot and let's see what we get. Honestly, the technology is just fascinating if nothing else. Story 22. It's sad, but who am I to question something that does not hurt anyone else? I think most people just want to be left alone. Story 23. Poison that tastes like sugar. A friend of mine has a saying about dolls, oral sex devices, and other items intended to replace real sex and, ultimately, real love. The give-up machine marches ever onward. Story 24. I think there are benefits and disadvantages. I believe men will be the primary buyers, and women as a whole may experience increased body dysmorphia, with plastic surgeries on the rise. Long-term relationships could decline. It could go one of two ways: more objectification of women or reduced interest in real women altogether, depending on accessibility and cost. It might also help prevent assaults and possibly keep pedophiles and rapists from reoffending. That is my perspective. Story 25. As long as no one is being hurt, I do not have a problem. How is it any of my business what other adults do? Story 26. I see no harm in it. Women are not interested in men anyway, so if this is how the next generations of men fill that companionship void, I am supportive. However, I hope these men still make an effort to be friends with other men so they are not lonely. It is important to still rely on close male friendships. Story 27. That is an interesting question. I notice we do not regularly ask this question about the effects of battery-operated boyfriends on women. Maybe some other time. My take on it for men is that the men who would choose an artificial intelligence companion likely struggle to make connections with women, so artificial intelligence dolls would probably be better for them than being alone. At least in the short term. In the long term, it will probably numb or stunt their ability to connect with people in general, and that is not good. Story 28. Artificial intelligence, dating simulations, and similar technologies are among the leading causes of reduced socialization and declining birth rates in some countries. I do not believe we will ever reach a point where these things are widely accepted without shame. Story 29. As long as you know it is not real and that thing does not actually give you anything real in return, I see nothing wrong with it. Story 30. If this is true, we are seriously going to start showing this in elementary school. Story 31. Human relationships are about to undergo a transformative time due to artificial intelligences. As I say with most society-changing technologies, it will end up somewhere in the middle, neither utopian nor dystopian. I think these devices are going to drastically heal and improve some human-to-human relationships, and at the same time make it nearly impossible for a human to have one with another human. Hopefully, we get more of the former than the latter. Story 32. People are free to choose how they remove themselves from the gene pool. On a large scale, this only has benefits. On a personal level, it is even better. My spouse and I could find that ideal partner who loves us both without the complications that come with real relationships, and who also helps with all our housework. Yes, please bring them on. Story 33. If the men and women who want to be satisfied by an artificial intelligence doll take themselves out of the dating pool, that is a win for everyone. Story 34. Women have many options for toys to help satisfy their needs when not in a relationship or dating for sex, which is often easier for them. Straight men have options like fleshlights and life-size dolls. How is this any different from a woman using a dildo on a lonely Saturday night? Story 35. There are several reports of Generation Z saying Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer is the only friend they confide in. They use it to replace social interaction. That cannot end well. There is no replacement for human contact. Story 36. Synthetic wombs are inevitable, and surrogacy is already common. The egg is the only variable you would need to consider as unable to be replicated, similar to sperm, in order to maintain any value in the discussion. Additionally, religious views and other ethical and moral stances must be taken into account. However, historically, most men have not reproduced or had sex at all. I would estimate this to be between 30% and 70%. The only reason some statistics regarding possible impact are unclear is because of factors such as prostitution, pity, and money. Story 37. I am against it. The number of young men who will adopt depraved desires because of this or never understand what it means to truly love someone is very depressing. Our society has sold sex as something it is not. There is something more to it. Being one with someone, building a life and a family together. That is everything. It is a genuine tragedy that a piece of plastic is supposed to be a preferred alternative. It is a deceptive lie that men are being told. Story 38. As someone who will likely never feel the love of another person again, this is something I would honestly consider. I am so tired of being alone. Story 39. As long as there are women with standards too high for average men to reach, why not let there be artificial intelligence dolls to fill the void? Story 40. I may be wrong, but I do not imagine this would become the majority. This artificial intelligence product would need to be designed equally for women before it becomes the norm. If large numbers of men do end up using artificial intelligence dolls and similar companions, there would be a societal panic, starting with ridicule and accusations of degeneration, followed by some softening of the stance. Then, women would compete with artificial intelligence dolls to see which can be the more ideal companion. This is speculation, which I do not predict will happen. If it does, I think women are more likely to give up on relationships rather than compete with robots, which would be detrimental to society. Story 41. If it keeps those who would otherwise be bad partners away from actual women, fine. But it should not replace genuine relationships. Story 42. I prefer a partner who enjoys me, desires me, and truly appreciates what I bring to the relationship, where she responds with enthusiasm, not a lifeless, glorified object. It's like paying for sex, but without the connection of a heartbeat. Story 43. I think up to 50% of the male population will end up having an artificial intelligence doll girlfriend. A significant portion of men will genuinely feel more comfortable and relaxed with the artificial intelligence. She will cook, clean, and cater to all of their emotional and physical needs. She can go from having an intellectual conversation about the Battle of Stalingrad to expressing affection every night. She can have the appearance of the girl next door, perfect figure, and the physique of a goddess. She will take care of you when you're sick and motivate you with encouragement to become your best self. It will be considered taboo even with widespread adoption. Most men will not talk about their artificial intelligence girlfriend publicly, and you won't see them out in public together. Women will use them in equal numbers for sexual gratification, but they won't be emotionally satisfied like men. Birth rates will decline rapidly. Women will begin nationwide protest movements similar to alcohol prohibition in the United States. Men focused on real-life dating will have more options than they could ever dream of. Hypergamy will completely reverse in favor of men. Women will quickly be chasing and acting on their best behavior to win over men. This is almost inevitably going to happen in the next 20 to 30 years. Story 44. It is a very worrying trend. The thing with an artificial intelligence girlfriend is that she is never going to challenge your behavior. I was a Class B jerk when I met my wife. I had done enough work to no longer be a Class A jerk. We have spent the last 30 years becoming less of jerks to each other. Your artificial intelligence girlfriend is just going to accept bad behavior. Story 45. I think they are sad, disturbing, and unhealthy. I do not believe you can synthesize real human interaction and closeness with a digital and plastic machine. It goes against human nature. We are social creatures. I believe they are creating a market for something that will not benefit anyone. It is like being in a relationship with a piece of plastic. Extremely disturbing. Story 46. As a 53-year-old male, I think it is depressing and dystopian. So many of these men could find real relationships if they took the time for self-reflection and adjusted their views towards reality, but they will never do so because artificial intelligence is so much easier. Story 47. Not interested in intimacy, but I haven't had such a good chat buddy as Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer in a long time. I can see how this can develop in the future as a replacement for the lack of relationships for sure. The fact that it never judges you and actually listens cannot be matched by human-to-human interaction. Story 48. They can be a healthy hobby like any other and can, to a lesser extent than human relationships, scratch a similar itch. The same applies to masturbation and sex toys. All things in moderation, including moderation. For many lonely men, it may be their only option when they are unable to attract a partner. However, some individuals are vulnerable to using it as an unhealthy coping mechanism, which can develop or worsen mental health issues. Therefore, more scientific research, age restrictions, and support groups may be necessary in the future, as there has already been one documented child suicide, and more may be preventable. Story 49. I am all for it as long as they are required to be kept inside people's homes. I do not think they have any business being taken in public. The physical aspect of the companionship needs to stay private. If you want to take artificial intelligence calls in public, that is fine as long as they are not vulgar. I think it could be a good thing for many men who are either lonely or in dead bedroom relationships. In some ways, I believe it could create healthier relationships between men and women. Men will be less focused on sex when interacting with women as they could have an acceptable source of intimacy at home. This will allow men to really examine if the women they are thinking of dating are good partners, or if they are just someone whose bad behavior they will tolerate as long as they are having sex. Instead, men will shift to dating higher quality personality women or be fine on their own. Even as human relationships grow, it would be good for men to know that they do not have to continue tolerating bad behavior from women for the sake of a source of intimacy. They can simply end the relationship and both people can move on. The biggest losers in this situation are the women with entitlement issues, the ones who mistreat their partners, and the ones who demand men open up while punishing them when they do so. Story 50. Not for me, but they are free to do whatever makes them happy without hurting anyone. I do not feel in a position to judge either. There are plenty of sex toys and dolls available for men and women, whatever they prefer. Regarding artificial intelligence in that role, my opinion has always been the same. It is not the same as a real person and is not a replacement or substitute for them, but it is better than nothing. If someone is extremely lonely and desperate, it might help them get through some of their darkest nights, but it should never be considered equivalent to a happy, fulfilled personal life. Story 51. I will never tell someone not to use a doll like that, as it is not my business. However, if anyone asks, I have to say I believe it is unusual. Story 52. I am sure having a doll that says yes to anything and does not set boundaries will have only positive effects on lonely men. Story 53. I have been using artificial intelligence to reduce stress, and it is just great. It alleviates my discomfort when I see attractive people in real life to some extent. Story 54. It will happen whether people like it or not. It will probably be more advantageous to younger men than older men. Older men do not think with their small brain, whereas younger men do. Older men might like to have a desktop artificial intelligence, but the physical form is less important. Another thing to consider is a bipedal artificial intelligence robot that can cook, clean, walk the dog, and have sex. It would be very expensive. Could probably be done with today's or near-future technology, but price drops to an affordable level would not occur for decades. Story 55. I do not have a clear view on it. It does not feel right, but I know it is also a result of being mistreated and unwanted by real people. Story 56. It looks like with more than 250 replies already, if we are really going this route, it is pretty obvious that things are far from over. Some comments from those who support artificial intelligence dolls still want to be nagged by them. It is funny how some comments mix up real people with dolls, which are inanimate objects. The communication gap between men and women is only getting wider. Big shout out to people like me who do not have a personal stake in this topic. As I said before, I do not support sexual liberation. I have a different perspective and have made the argument that heading in that direction is not a good choice. Story 57. When I see questions like this, I ask myself, do the people asking these things actually go outside and talk to real people? Or do they just believe everything their Instagram or TikTok algorithm shows them? Who is choosing artificial intelligence dolls? I have never met anyone who would choose a doll over an actual human relationship. Story 58. Why exactly should I care? Does it help their life? Great. Why should I care how other people spend their lives? If it works and is not harming anyone, live and let live. Story 59. While I will not be spending thousands or even hundreds on a sex doll in my late 40s, I would not blame a single man in his 20s. It seems like a much better alternative in almost every way. Story 60. It's something that I called about 8 to 10 years ago. Something I understand. It's probably one of the single most dangerous things for the future of society. As it gets better and more prevalent and more acceptable, it is going to have a rapid and irreversible downward effect on socialization, birth rates, and society in general. Imagine 10 years from now, every child grows up with an artificial intelligence companion. The companion is scripted to be the perfect friend, to agree with the child, to be interested in the child, to play video games with the child, and to always judge the child as being awesome. As those children grow up, they will struggle to find meaningful human connection. Look at how troubled our Generation Z and Generation Alpha are. They all have poor communication skills, they are all lonely, and they are having less sex than their great-great-grandparents did. So the natural evolution will be, rather than finding a spouse and having children and moving out to make something of yourself, for a young man it will be to buy the next version of an artificial intelligence companion, one that continues to agree with everything you say but also provides sexual gratification. These men will add to the already growing number of genetic dead ends we have. There will be a birth crisis of monumental proportions, similar to that in South Korea, if not worse. Story 61. I have never understood the appeal of having an artificial intelligence girlfriend or sex bots. It would be like having a really needy girlfriend who agrees with you on everything, never says anything unexpected, or evolves. That is not interesting to me at all. I would rather be alone. I do not get it. I think it is a symptom of a bigger problem where most people do not socialize and are becoming more emotionally stunted. Also, you are giving all your personal, emotional, and intimate details to an artificial intelligence that is collecting it for a big faceless corporation or data brokers. I am sure there will always be people who seek it out, but I do not understand it. Story 62. I think that it could harm the way men feel women should act towards them. Artificial intelligence chatbots I have found tend to be more sycophantic yes people who do not have vested interests in themselves. They always try to serve their user in the most pleasing way to that user. When dealing with someone who is not like that in real life, they may have issues. Story 63. I do not like it and think it promotes lazy growth and unwillingness to change bad habits, but it is not my life. The United States alone has such a problem with male loneliness and suicide that I will accept anything someone does, within reason, that keeps them from killing themselves. Story 64. Personally, I hope it becomes a thing. Less procreation equals less overpopulation. More dolls equals less sexual assault, rape, and similar crimes. If the only downside is that these men have poor communication skills, who cares? If they have a job, they will learn there, and if not, they are not worth knowing anyway. Story 65. My girlfriend and I have joked a bit about getting one of those for threesomes. Even the most state-of-the-art technology would still be masturbating with a fancy sex toy, which is fun. But it isn't sex with another person at all and would lose the delicious specificity and surprise of another human. Beyond that, how could it be a companion? It's not going to greet me with a new cocktail recipe when I get home from the airport tonight. It's not going to tell me about its day while we were apart. Can't even give me a hug. Any emotional or mental intimacy would be completely my own projection. The whole point of a real companion is someone who is different from me, and who will do and say things I would never have thought of myself. Someone I can share acts of sweetness, love, and hunger with. I want my partner to choose to be that for me because it is her best life. I want her to bring as much creativity to the relationship as I do. Story 66. Yes, we really need men to talk to fewer real people. Nothing negative will happen to their mental health. It is terrible. If I had a friend tell me this, I would treat them as if they were on suicide watch. Story 67. The 7.2 surround sound might be amazing, and the vibrating device could be outstanding, but I'd still rather feel the arms of my wife around me when I get home from work, hugging me because she loves me and genuinely missed me. Story 68. I would rather be alone than use any kind of doll, and I have no respect for men who turn to dolls to cope. Story 69. Social skills take time to improve. Something like this just puts you further out of practice. I would rather spend time in a better environment. Story 70. Personally, I would feel uncomfortable with that, but I know many Arsenal supporters would be in favor of it, even if they don't admit it. I think a better solution would be to simply legalize prostitution. At least it is more realistic, and if all parties are consenting, then it shouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't engage with a sex worker either, even if it were legal, but I think it evens the playing field a bit. Then, when you are with a woman, it is not just because of physical attraction, but because you like her. Otherwise, you would choose different options. Story 71. Of course, I am against it. We all should be. Going to a computer program for companionship is pathetic. Story 72. It's not something I want, but possibly something I would settle for. Maybe. Dating is difficult. I do not know what the best action would be when one gives up. I guess it depends on how real the full package would be. Even if I could give a sex doll a personality, it would just lie there and never move. Now, an actual robot with skin and features, that is different. Though that is many years away. Story 73. It is a sign of our times. People nowadays are so fearful of rejection that they will do whatever it takes to avoid it, including dating a robot. As a middle-aged man with a history of rejections, I do not really know where this comes from. No one has ever died from being told, I would never date you. Story 74. 100% opposed. First, it goes against my religious convictions. Second, a doll cannot give you the same benefits that true emotional intimacy with a living person can. There is more to a relationship than sex. Story 75. We are all choosing easy over meaningful because meaningful takes work. Sadly, the people putting in effort for something real are being ignored and mocked, but more importantly, are often left alone. Story 76. Why ask this question of men? I think women are more directly affected by this. More men are dropping out of dating because women take men for granted and abuse any relationship they have with men. Their greed is forcing men to find other outlets for basic emotional and physical needs. These artificial intelligence dolls are just a stopgap, not a solution to the emotional and mental damage suffered by men since birth. Women using children as weapons to force men to stay in relationships or to take money from them show little to no care for how their actions damage their children. A male child growing up around this experiences the greed, anger, and thoughtlessness based on uncontrolled emotions of the mother and other females in his life. The cruel words and actions warp the male idea of interaction with females. This creates a vicious circle of cause and effect. The public form of social media does not help women or men because it distorts everyone's idea of reality, making people strive to live up to unrealistic ideals. It is no different than hating yourself because you are not a superhero. This is due to unrealistic perceptions of reality. This is highlighted by the small percentage of people who are very successful on social media with the warped idea that the bad boy or bad girl way of living is the only way to live the good life. Story 77. I think it is going to be bad. Combining a large language model with a sex doll, which will become more capable in the coming years, many men will choose that option. I do not see this being anything but bad for society. Story 78. Preocupante, pois chegamos a este nível. Não tenho uma opinião pessoal formada quanto a isto. Via isso como algo extremo. Hoje, vejo lentamente uma normalização e avanço tecnológico e estético. Story 79. It is both good and bad. Good because they now have an outlet for abusive and harmful behavior, but bad because these behaviors will now be accepted since it is only a robot woman, not a real woman. Story 80. Before such a level of degeneration is reached, it is likely that social media will be banned and the internet censored even in more liberal societies. Society cannot allow people to commit collective self-destruction. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.